The giant legal battle between Apple and Spotify is getting more and more bizarre every day. Things we learned about these companies, the things they've done, are truly stunning. The CEO of Spotify exposed how unfair Apple is with competitors, and now it's getting ugly. Wrongdoings and unethical business practices became so bad that even the European Union got involved and fined Apple billions of dollars. However, who would think at that time that it was just the beginning? In addition, we talked in previous videos about how Apple is facing various lawsuits currently, but this potential fine from the European Union might be too much for the tech giant because the accumulated problems and lawsuits that Apple is facing are extremely dangerous. Moreover, Elon Musk surprised everyone when he came out and publicly defended Spotify. As Musk says, these things that Apple did are very wrong. This is a very interesting situation, so let's explain it. The denials are the latest chapter in Spotify and Apple's long-running spat. For over 7 years, the firms have fought in court over Apple's app restrictions and items sold via apps. Apple's stance as a make-or-break arbiter for apps has long irritated app developers, particularly those competing with services like Apple Music. Spotify sees the audiobook dispute as another example of how Apple stifles competition and harms competitors. Since filing an antitrust lawsuit against Apple in Europe in 2019, Spotify has encouraged regulators and politicians to allow app developers to inform users about alternatives to Apple's payment system, which many applications are compelled to use. The audiobook dispute provides insight into the difficulties that developers experience while attempting to implement new functionality. To comply with Apple's requirements, Spotify incorporated its legal team in the process of product development and hired Naya Zickerman, a former startup founder with a law degree, to lead the endeavor. Apple first authorized the new feature in Spotify's existing app before reversing course, plunging Spotify into a nightmarish scenario in which Apple told the audio business that it could send consumers emails about online transactions, but couldn't give a button inside its app to request such emails. Apple may face additional antitrust allegations in the European Union, in conjunction with a music streaming investigation sparked by a complaint from Spotify. The charges are part of the European Commission's continuing investigation into allegations of anti-competitive behavior by Spotify in the music streaming industry, and they indicate that the EU is building its case against Apple amid rising scrutiny of big tech throughout the region. Spotify filed a complaint with the European Commission in 2019, alleging that Apple enforces App Store rules that intentionally limit choice and stifle competition at the expense of the customer experience, claiming that the company was acting as both a player and a referee in order to intentionally disadvantage other app developers. Spotify specifically mentioned how Apple's 30% commission on App Store transactions, including in-app subscriptions, causes the music streaming service to charge existing users $12.99 per month for its premium plan on the App Store, only to collect the $9.99 per month it normally charges. It is claimed that this provides Apple an unfair advantage because Spotify cannot compete with Apple Music's usual $9.99 per month price on the App Store. If Spotify does not accept payments through the App Store, Apple is said to impose a number of technical and experience-limiting constraints on the company. Apple is also claimed to be keeping Spotify, as well as other rivals, out of Apple services, making Apple Music a more appealing alternative for users. The investigation concluded that Apple violated EU competition legislation in April 2021. Apple refuted claims of anti-competitive activity, claiming at the time of Spotify's lawsuit that its competitor was using financial motivations in false statements. According to a source familiar with the situation, the European Commission now intends to include further antitrust accusations in an additional statement of objections, which is often used when an EU competition enforcer changes portions of its case or obtains new information. The creator of music streaming platform Spotify used a rare trip to Brussels to put personal pressure on the European Union to speed up a lawsuit against Apple's practices. In an interview, Swedish billionaire Daniel Ek stated that he discussed Apple's anti-competitive conduct with competition regulator Margrethe Vestager. "It's a picture of a firm that zigs and zags to avoid doing anything," he said, adding that other authorities, including those in Japan, the Netherlands, and South Korea, have criticized Apple on similar grounds. He asked the Commission to follow suit. He mentioned that he asked her what could be done to expedite the matter. As an entrepreneur, he expects everything to happen ASAP. Most regulatory processes take time, so he feels the pace is normal so far, but it doesn't mean they shouldn't try to speed things up. Ek expressed optimism that his visit would hasten the investigation into Apple, which has been ongoing for over 4 years. He hoped that his visit would increase awareness and attention to the issue, making it a greater priority. His statements came after talks with senior officials, including Vestager, Commissioner Vera Jourova, and Cabinet of Internal Markets Commissioner Thierry Breton, to push his case for a quick settlement to an antitrust investigation into Apple. Spotify lodged a complaint with the European authorities in 2019, alleging that Apple was collecting a 30% cut of its subscription payments in exchange for displaying it in the App Store and depriving the streaming platform the chance to inform its subscribers of other options to upgrade. Earlier this year, the Commission accused Apple for violating EU law. Vestager, according to Eck, expressed her dissatisfaction with the investigation's speed. The Commission made no comments following the meeting, other than to mention that they addressed competition and digital portfolio problems. The Commission has not set a timeframe for issuing its final decision, and authorities have not indicated when it will be issued. Whoever loses the lawsuit will almost certainly file an appeal with the EU courts. Spotify's critics contend that the firm is so successful that it does not require authorities to crack down on Apple in order to prosper. But Eck disagreed, claiming that the streaming service was effective despite the circumstances. Companies that have complained about big tech have long said that antitrust investigations achieve insufficient results and occur too late for industry competition to profit from any action. Fines are commonly seen as an unavoidable cost of conducting business. Following a series of rejections, Spotify said that Apple had accepted a version of their app that included an audiobook experience. An Apple official said the firm had no qualms to Spotify introducing audiobooks, but that Spotify couldn't do it by violating regulations against exposing web addresses and using wording that encourages consumers to make purchases outside of the app. According to an Apple spokesman, they gave them explicit instructions on how to remedy the issue and approved their software once they had made improvements that brought it into conformity. Apple claims that the exposure it provides across billions of iPhones and iPads has aided the success of Spotify and other apps. It claims that using its payment method to buy apps prevents customers from fraud and maintains the App Store safe for users. Earlier this year, British antitrust regulators opted not to investigate competition problems in the music streaming industry. Spotify's CEO Daniel Ek tweeted a link to a New York Times article that criticized how Apple has been rejecting the Spotify app. According to the report, this is because Spotify offers audiobooks which breaks Apple's rules about how developers can communicate with customers online about purchases. And Elon Musk responded to this story, where Musk supported the Spotify CEO and agreed that this behavior of Apple was very concerning. For now, the situation is very messy, but that's all there is for today. Subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell.